My wife demanded I block all our friends because her poem lost at our wedding talent show. She said, "If you loved me, you'd choose me over them." Now she's dating someone new who follows her orders. I, 29M, never thought I'd be writing this kind of post. The short version is that my wife Morgan, 28F, organized a talent showcase at our wedding reception, got upset when her performance wasn't the favorite, and has now completely unraveled our marriage. Here's what happened. Morgan and I met during sophomore year of college. We dated for 6 years before I proposed last year. Throughout our relationship, Morgan always talked about wanting to be a writer. She submitted a collection of short stories to several publishers a few years ago but never got picked up. It was disappointing, but she seemed to move past it and focused on her job at a marketing firm. 3 months before our wedding, Morgan came up with the idea to have a small talent showcase during our reception. She explained that it would be a way to highlight our friends' talents and show how much we valued friendship alongside our marriage. I thought it was a bit unusual, but Morgan was excited about it, so I agreed. She planned to recite a poem she wrote specifically for the event. The theme was going to be about supporting each other while starting a new chapter in life. She invited her college friend Jenna, 28F, to sing an original song. A few other friends from our social circle also prepared performances. I invited my buddy Blake, 30M, to the wedding. Blake works as an accountant but has a home recording setup and makes music as a hobby. He's engaged to be married next year to his longtime girlfriend. The wedding itself went smoothly. The ceremony was beautiful, and the reception started out great. When it came time for the talent showcase, Morgan went first and recited her poem. It was nice, and people clapped appreciatively. Then Jenna performed her song, which was surprisingly good. The crowd seemed to really connect with it, and she received noticeably more applause than Morgan had. A few other friends performed after that. I didn't notice anything wrong until I looked over at Morgan during Jenna's applause. Her face had completely changed. She went from smiling to this cold, hard expression I'd never seen before. For the rest of the reception, she barely spoke to anyone, including me. When I asked if everything was okay, she just nodded and said she was tired. After Jenna's performance, Blake went up to her and complimented her song. I overheard him offering to help her record it properly on his equipment at home. They exchanged phone numbers, which seemed perfectly innocent to me. The day after the wedding, Jenna sent Morgan a text thanking her for organizing the talent show. She mentioned how excited she was about Blake's offer to help record her song and asked if Morgan wanted to get lunch as a thank you. I saw the message on Morgan's phone when she showed it to me with a scowl on her face. Instead of being happy for her friend, Morgan threw her phone on the couch and told me she regretted the whole talent show. Then she demanded that I block Blake on all social media and delete his number from my contacts. I asked her why, and she said he had no business offering to help Jenna with her music. I refused. Blake and I had been friends for years, and he hadn't done anything wrong. I told Morgan she should be happy for Jenna instead of being jealous. That led to our first major argument as a married couple. Morgan accused me of not taking her side and questioned my loyalty to her. The next day, Morgan called up some of our mutual friends from college to complain about Jenna. She described Jenna's thank you text as bragging and said Jenna wouldn't have this opportunity if it weren't for her talent show. When our friends asked to see the actual message, Morgan refused to show it to them. To my surprise, they didn't take her side. They told her she was overreacting and that she should be supportive of Jenna's opportunity. Morgan didn't like that response at all. She told them she didn't want to hang out with any of them for now because they weren't supporting her. This included me, apparently, since I also disagreed with her. 2 of our friends texted me privately to ask if Morgan was okay. They said her behavior seemed completely out of character and they were concerned. I was concerned too. In all our years together, I'd never seen Morgan act this way. I called my dad for advice. At first, he suggested giving Morgan a few days to calm down. The wedding had been stressful, and maybe she just needed time to decompress. But as the days passed and Morgan's fixation on the talent show and Jenna continued, my dad suggested we might need marriage counseling. He pointed out that demanding I cut off friends was an unhealthy way to start a marriage. When I brought up the idea of counseling to Morgan, she immediately shut it down. She said there was nothing wrong with her. According to Morgan, I was the problem because I wouldn't choose her over my friends. In her mind, if I really loved her, I would block Blake without question. As the days went on, Morgan's mood swings got worse. She would suddenly start venting about Jenna in the middle of dinner or while we were watching TV. Then she'd go completely silent for hours. I started to wonder if there might be something medically wrong with her, as this behavior was so different from the woman I'd known for years. When I pressed Morgan about why Jenna's potential music opportunity bothered her so much, she finally admitted it was connected to her failed attempt at publishing her stories. She felt that Jenna was getting an easy break while she had struggled and been rejected. She also blamed me for inviting Blake to the wedding, saying I should have known better than to bring someone who might like Jenna's song. 2 weeks after our wedding, things reached a breaking point. We had planned a honeymoon trip to Hawaii, but Morgan announced she was canceling it. She said she wouldn't go anywhere with me unless I cut off not just Blake, but all of our friends who had sided with Jenna. When I refused again, Explaining that isolating ourselves from our support system wasn't healthy, Morgan called me entitled just like Jenna. She packed a bag and said she needed a break because I obviously didn't care about her feelings. Then she left our apartment and went to stay with her parents. She left behind most of her belongings, including her wedding ring on the bathroom counter. I tried calling and texting her multiple times over the next few days, but she didn't respond. I also tried contacting her parents, but they wouldn't answer my calls either. After nearly a week of silence, I talked to my dad again. He suggested that given how quickly and dramatically things had fallen apart, I should consider getting an annulment. He pointed out that Morgan's unreasonable demands, refusal to consider counseling, and now ghosting me were serious red flags that shouldn't be ignored. I sent Morgan one final message asking her to consider joint therapy. I told her I loved her but couldn't agree to cut off our entire social circle. She didn't respond. Then I saw she had posted on Facebook about the wedding. She claimed there's an unwritten rule that the bride should get the most applause at wedding talent shows. She accused the guests of betraying her by cheering louder for Jenna, and me of taking Jenna's side instead of supporting her. At that point, I decided my dad was right. This wasn't the person I thought I had married. Update 1: It's been a month since the wedding, and 2 weeks since my last post. Thank you for all the comments and messages of support. Many of you asked for more details about what happened, so here's where things stand now. After Morgan's Facebook post, I decided to talk to Blake directly about the situation. I wanted to understand exactly what had happened between him and Jenna at the reception, since it was apparently the trigger for all this drama. Blake and his fiancée had come over to our place for football games several times in the months before the wedding. Morgan had always been friendly with them, so her sudden hatred of Blake made no sense. When I explained Morgan's reaction and her demand that I cut him off, Blake was completely baffled. He laughed when I mentioned Morgan's belief that he was giving Jenna some kind of big break in the music industry. Blake clarified that he had only offered to let Jenna use his basic home recording equipment to make a better quality demo of her song. His exact words were that he had a microphone and audio interface in his spare bedroom, and Jenna could come over for dinner with him and his fiancée, then record in their basement. He even suggested she would need to pay someone else for professional mixing, as he was still learning that part himself. This was hardly the career-launching opportunity Morgan had built it up to be in her mind. It was just one friend offering another friend the use of some amateur equipment. A few days after my conversation with Blake, I received a letter from Morgan's parents. They asked me to pack up all of Morgan's belongings and leave them on their front porch on a specific date when they knew I would be at work. They included a set of demands about what should be packed and how, along with a warning not to attempt to see or speak to Morgan during the drop-off. I called my dad again to discuss the situation. He advised me to comply with the request to avoid any further complications, but to keep a detailed inventory of everything I packed. He also recommended I take photos of all the items before delivering them, in case there were any accusations about missing or damaged property later. The letter from Morgan's parents made no mention of our marriage or any plans for the future. It was as if they were helping their daughter move out of an ex-boyfriend's apartment, not dealing with the breakdown of a marriage that was less than a month old. I spent that weekend carefully packing Morgan's clothes, books, and personal items. As I worked, I found things that reminded me of our relationship: concert tickets we'd saved, birthday cards, photos from vacations. None of it matched up with the person who had stormed out of our apartment over a talent show. On the designated day, I dropped off the boxes at her parents' house as requested. I left a note asking Morgan to contact me about our legal situation, but I didn't receive any response. Later that week, I ran into one of our mutual friends at the grocery store. She told me Morgan had been telling people I was abusive because I refused to support her after the wedding. She claimed I had humiliated her by inviting Blake, knowing he would like Jenna's song better than her poem. This accusation floored me. Not only was it completely false, but it was also impossible for me to have known Blake would connect with Jenna's music or offer to help her record it. The whole narrative Morgan was spinning made no logical sense. The friend assured me that no one who knew us believed Morgan's story. In fact, most of our social circle was confused and concerned by her behavior. Several people had tried to talk to her, but she had cut off anyone who questioned her version of events. Another revelation came when I spoke with Jenna for the first time since the wedding. She told me Morgan had sent her a long, angry message accusing her of deliberately trying to upstage her at the wedding. According to Morgan, Jenna had known how important the talent show was to Morgan and had chosen a song specifically designed to get more applause. Jenna was hurt and confused by this accusation. She said Morgan had asked her to participate in the talent show because she was proud of Jenna's songwriting and wanted to showcase it. Jenna had spent weeks practicing her song to make sure it was perfect, as a way of honoring her friendship with Morgan. What struck me most about both of these conversations was how Morgan had completely revised history to make herself the victim. The talent show had been her idea, she had invited the participants, and she had promoted it as a celebration of friendship. Now she was acting as if it had been a competition that Jenna had maliciously won. I consulted with a lawyer about my options. Since we had been married less than a month, an annulment was possible in our state. The lawyer advised me to file the paperwork immediately, before the window for annulment closed. When I filed for annulment, I had to list a reason. I chose fraud because Morgan had essentially misrepresented herself throughout our relationship. The person who walked out of our apartment was not the same person I thought I had married. Morgan was served with the annulment papers at her parents' house. 3 days later, I received a text message from her, the first direct communication since she left. It consisted of just 3 words, "How dare you?" I didn't respond. At this point, any communication between us was best handled through legal channels. Update 2. It's been a month since my last update, and things have taken several unexpected turns. First, Morgan contested the annulment. Her lawyer filed a response claiming that I had abandoned her, not the other way around. According to her filing, she had only gone to her parents' house for a few days to clear her head, and I had used that opportunity to pack up her things, change the locks, and file for annulment without warning. This was completely false. I had the text messages proving she had declared she was taking a break from our marriage. I had witnesses who saw her leave with her bag. I had my phone record showing dozens of unanswered calls to her number. And I certainly never changed the locks. That was pure fabrication. My lawyer assured me that Morgan's claims wouldn't hold up in court, but the legal process would now be more complicated and expensive than I had hoped. Instead of a quick annulment, we were looking at either a contested annulment hearing or converting to a divorce case. While this was happening, Morgan ramped up her campaign against me among our social circle. She created a private Facebook group called Support for Morgan where she posted daily updates about her struggle with me. Someone who was added to the group took screenshots and sent them to me. In these posts, Morgan claimed I had engineered the whole talent show situation to humiliate her. She said I had secretly told people to cheer louder for Jenna. She even suggested that Blake and Jenna had been having an affair before the wedding, and I had known about it. The wildest claim was that I had married her for her family's money, they're middle class, just like my family, and had been looking for an excuse to leave her. According to Morgan, when the talent show didn't give me a reason to leave, I manipulated the situation until she was forced to go to her parents' house, then filed for annulment. None of this made any sense. Why would I spend 6 years in a relationship, plan a wedding, and go through with it, just to manufacture a bizarre talent show scenario to end the marriage 2 weeks later? The most concerning development came when Jenna received a cease and desist letter from a lawyer representing Morgan. The letter accused Jenna of intentional infliction of emotional distress and tortious interference with a marital relationship. It demanded that Jenna stop all contact with Blake and pay Morgan $25,000 for damages to her marriage. Jenna was terrified. She had never been involved in a legal dispute before and didn't know what to do. She forwarded the letter to me, and I immediately sent it to my lawyer. My lawyer confirmed the letter came from a real law firm but said the claims were absurd and unlikely to result in an actual lawsuit. She suspected it was an intimidation tactic rather than a serious legal threat. Nevertheless, she advised Jenna to consult with her own lawyer and keep documentation of all interactions with Morgan. Around this time, I also learned that Morgan had quit her job at the marketing firm. One of her coworkers, who was also a casual friend of ours, told me Morgan had been telling people at work that she needed to leave her job because I was stalking her there. The coworker knew this wasn't true, as I had never once visited Morgan at work, and she was concerned about Morgan's mental state. The final revelation came from Morgan's cousin, who reached out to me privately. She told me Morgan had behaved similarly once before, during their high school years. Morgan had been cast as the lead in the school play, but after receiving lukewarm reviews compared to a supporting actress, she had quit the drama club and spread rumors about the other girl. The cousin had assumed Morgan had matured past that behavior and was shocked to see it resurface. This information, while disturbing, provided some context for Morgan's extreme reaction to the talent show. Perhaps the pressure of the wedding had triggered an old pattern of behavior that had been dormant during our relationship. The annulment hearing was scheduled for the following month. My lawyer advised me to gather all evidence of Morgan's behavior, including screenshots of her Facebook posts, statements from witnesses at the wedding, and testimonials from friends who had observed her behavior afterward. I felt completely drained by the whole situation. What should have been the happy beginning of our married life had turned into a legal and emotional nightmare. Part of me still couldn't believe how quickly and completely things had fallen apart over something as trivial as a talent show. Update 3: The hearing for our annulment took place last week. I wasn't sure if Morgan would actually show up, but she did, accompanied by her parents and her lawyer. This was the first time I had seen her since she walked out of our apartment 2 months ago. She looked completely different. Her hair, which had always been long, was cut short. She was wearing clothes in a style I had never seen her wear before. But the biggest change was in her expression, cold and distant, as if we were strangers. The hearing itself was brief but intense. My lawyer presented the evidence we had gathered, the text messages, witness statements, and documentation of Morgan's behavior after leaving. Morgan's lawyer tried to portray me as controlling and manipulative, claiming I had orchestrated the talent show to embarrass Morgan. The judge seemed skeptical of both narratives and suggested that whatever had happened, it was clear the marriage had broken down irretrievably. She denied the annulment on technical grounds but granted an expedited divorce instead. As we were leaving the courtroom, Morgan approached me in the hallway. For a moment, I thought she might want to talk rationally about what had happened. Instead, she handed me an envelope and walked away without a word. Inside was a handwritten letter. In it, Morgan explained that she had always resented me for being too supportive of other people. She claimed that throughout our relationship, I had consistently paid more attention to our friends' achievements than to hers. The talent show was just the final proof that I didn't prioritize her above everyone else. The letter ended with a statement that she deserved someone who would put her first, always and unconditionally, even when she was wrong. She said she had realized during our separation that I was not that person and never would be. Reading the letter, I finally understood what had happened. Morgan had expected me to validate her anger at Jenna and Blake, regardless of whether it was reasonable. When I didn't, she saw it as a betrayal rather than as normal, healthy behavior. The next day, Blake called to tell me that Jenna had decided to record her song professionally at a small local studio. The whole experience with Morgan had made her more determined to pursue her music, not less. He asked if I wanted to come to the studio to watch the recording session, as several of our friends were going to be there for support. I agreed to go. Being around friends who had stood by me throughout this bizarre situation felt healing. Watching Jenna perform her song, the same one that had somehow triggered the collapse of my marriage, gave me a sense of closure. After the recording session, our friend group went out for dinner. For the first time in months, I spent an evening not thinking about Morgan or the divorce. We talked about normal things, jobs, movies, upcoming trips. It felt like stepping back into regular life. The divorce will be finalized in a few weeks. Fortunately, Morgan and I hadn't combined our finances yet, so the financial separation has been relatively straightforward. The emotional aftermath has been more complicated. I've had to explain to distant relatives and friends why my marriage ended after just 2 weeks. I've dealt with well-meaning people asking if we've tried counseling or suggesting it was just newlywed stress. I've removed and stored all the wedding photos and gifts. Morgan still occasionally posts about me on social media, though less frequently now. According to mutual friends, she's dating someone new already, a guy who apparently agrees with everything she says and has cut off friends at her request. As for me, I'm focusing on rebuilding my life. I moved to a new apartment to get a fresh start. I've reconnected with friends I had somewhat neglected during the wedding planning. I've taken on new projects at work to keep my mind occupied. Sometimes I still can't believe a simple talent show at our wedding reception ended up revealing such a fundamental incompatibility between us. If someone had told me on our wedding day that I would be divorced before the scheduled honeymoon, I would have thought they were joking. But I'm also grateful, in a way. Better to discover this side of Morgan now than years into our marriage, possibly with children involved. And I've learned an important lesson about what I need in a relationship: mutual respect, reasonable expectations, and the freedom to maintain friendships without constant loyalty tests. The talent show might have ended my marriage, but it also prevented me from spending years with someone who had a very different understanding of what marriage should be.